Hi, Mystery Writers. Welcome to the Mystery Writers Studio. I'm Zara Altair, and today I wanted to talk about expanding your story idea because if you're a writer, you probably have lots of them. I know I have a list that I keep of story ideas, and I think most writers do. And they come in the middle of the night or when you're out on a walk, and all of a sudden there's a new story idea, and you think about your novel before you start writing, and you do a little bit of research and you brainstorm how your story will work, and you hear the voices of different characters, and um, this process is an essential part of getting ready to write your story. So before you start writing your novel, you want to get organized. It just makes such a difference. Get all your ideas down on paper or virtual paper, and experienced writers know that memory is fallible. And so writing those ideas down really, really helps. I know I'm working with an author right now on writing accountability. We meet once a week, and I'm we're working on writing those ideas down because as we're talking, ideas come out, and I'm going to make sure that she's writing those ideas down so that she can think about how they're going to work in her book. And with all those bits and pieces that you've created, there's still holes in the story. You have this and you have that, but the story doesn't hang together, as it were. And so you have to realize that writing is a process. And before you leap in, while you still have the plot holes and unformed characters, you want to get a good grasp of your story. It's really going to help you in the long run write your story and write it well, because you're going to know where you are going and who's doing what in your story. So one of the easiest ways you can do this is when you get that idea, start with a sentence summary. In one sentence, you just write down, what happens in this story. Your one sentence story will help you focus your creative efforts during the time when you plot and write your story. Knowing what your story is about will keep you on track when the inevitable rabbit holes pop up, and they do. Those rabbit holes, you can get sidetracked so easily. So even if you don't figure out your storyline until after you write your first draft, it can be a powerful tool to help you out um, with the requirements that you need to write the whole story, finish it, and eliminate those plot holes, which are the logic gaps in your story that just confuse your readers. So you can frame, here's a model sentence. You can frame that model sentence like this: in a setting, whatever it is, a protagonist, whatever your protagonist is, your detective, has a problem, state the problem, caused by an antagonist, so the problem, how it happened, and faces a conflict, which is how to solve the mystery as they try to achieve the goal. And for mystery writers, that goal is revealing who the real villain is, who the real antagonist is. So it helps. Now you got that story idea, right? And now it helps if before you start that sentence, you really have a clear idea of each element in that sentence. What's the setting? Who's the protagonist? What's the problem? Who's the antagonist? What's the major conflict? And what is the goal? For mystery writers, the goal is usually pretty simple, and that is who did it. But are coming to acknowledge who it is. You may change your villain as you're writing the story, so you want to be clear about who it is you're going to reveal at the end, all right? So essentially what the sentence is your main idea expanded. It's your story idea. All right. Um, and here's an example of Gorky Park by Martin Cruz Smith, which is a tremendous story. A Moscow homicide detective investigates a bizarre triple murder and runs afoul of the KGB and the FBI. So there you go. While your your story might be your I can't talk. While your story sentence might be 25 to 30 words, you want to leave out character names, subplots, or any other details. It's in essence you're getting to the essence of that story. You're constructing the core of that story. And once you formulate that base, everything in your story stems from and relates to that story seed. Write it down and keep it as a reference. I know I have my story sentence right at the beginning of the story in my manuscript, so I can always just pop back to it if I feel like I'm going astray. How does the scene relate to moving the story forward? It's one of our goals as writers, and looking at that core of the story. All right. And then you can actually expand that sentence into a paragraph. Um, and you can start with a status quo of where the story begins, and that you can create the first plot point. What major event kicks off the actual story? You can think about the midpoint where things take a turn for the worse, and that second plot point when your sleuth hits rock bottom and starts turning things around, and then also the climax and denouement. So you get those 5 major story points in line, and you can start filling in the in between parts. All right. So you can go even further and take it from 1 sentence to 5 sentences. So the first sentence sets up the story, introducing the lead characters and the story world. So you have your setting and your characters, right? And the second sentence summarizes the beginning and presents the first disaster to force a decision that frames the story question. All right. And the third sentence summarizes the first part of the middle leading up to the second disaster. And that for mystery writers is that discovery journey that your detective has when they first start at looking at clues, discovering who the suspects are and interviewing them. The fourth sentence uh, summarizes the second part of the middle, which leads up to the disaster, which forces his decision to pursue to the final confrontation. And the fifth sentence explains how the story ends, including the final confrontation and any wrap up that you feel you need to explain. So you can do that. And I know I've mentioned in previous sessions that writing the whole story out, expanding from this, helps many writers. I know writers who write 40-page uh, outlines, as it were, of their story. So when they sit down to actually write it scene by scene, they really have the story in hand. So you want to then populate your story and make sure you have your characters in place. You have your protagonist, your detective sleuth, the antagonist, which for us is hidden in the background. That is the person who committed the crime. We have the supporters that are the friends and cohorts of your detective, and we also have minor characters who function mainly with setting to add verisimilitude to your story. And of course, for us, we have all the those suspects as well. So you really want to dig into the character backgrounds of each one of those characters. Um, and I've talked repeatedly about character backgrounds, so I'm not going to go into that much here. Um, so, on average, about 20% of the background research and story and character development that you use, that, that I'm sorry, the background research and character development that you do, only about 20% of that actually appears in your story. But you have all these details ready to pull out whenever you need them when a situation presents itself in a scene in your story. So, the once again, the exercise of writing a synopsis is up to you. It can be very short, like that 5 sentence summary, up to what I mentioned before. It can be 40, 50 pages, or anywhere in between. But what that does is help solidify the story in your head. Um, Before you get started, that synopsis is optional. It's just that it helps a lot of people. Um, Once you've done all that work, you're ready to build your novel. You're ready to start writing. Um, let's see. For instance, oftentimes in my stories, they've been inspired by a place rather than the method of a murder. It's just going to be how you get that story idea, and building out from that story idea helps arrange the various story parts around your central idea. So I think if you keep your central idea, that's going to help keep you from wandering. It's going to keep you from writing unnecessary scenes or even unnecessary chapters that you're going to have to pull out later. It really helps you stay on track. All right. So, if this is your first story idea, oh, I've got this idea. Now I want to write a story. All right. So, don't be daunted by the work, because writing a novel is a process. It's a big project. It isn't just dash in and do it, it is a big project. So, be patient with yourself and make sure that you use that core story idea as the basis and expand from that. And I hope that helps. Story ideas, because one of the things that can happen is you start to get a list of story ideas. Um, Ideas will come to you and you can pop them in under that list. Oh, for this story idea, I really want this character, or this setting, or this event is really important, or one of the suspects must be. So you keep building it out and building it out and building it out. All right. Once again, I just want to remind everyone that November is the last month of the Mystery Writer Studio. In the future, you will always be able to access all of these videos on YouTube, but I am going to be stopping production after 6 years. I'm going to be stopping production at the end of November. Um, so keep writing, and thank you very much for being here. I'll see you next week.